Hello, welcome to Yokohama International School. My name's Zoe Page.
And I'm Donna Saito, and we're first grade teachers at Yokohama International School.
Today we'd like to show you how we take the IB approaches to learning and attitudes and have created a learning wall with the children and parents in our school.
So now why would we want to do this? We value play at YIS, and we consider it to be a core to our curriculum. And we want the children to learn how to record their learning and to understand how through play they can bridge opportunities for learning and learn more.
And then how do we make ideas that are in children's heads, how do we make that visible to other people in our community, such as other children, teachers and parents? So for this we sought inspiration from many sources. We both took the Making Thinking Visible course with Ron Richard, and
we worked with Kath Murdoch, and she made big suggestions on how we can use the approaches to learning more in our planners and in our daily teaching.
And that became very important to us, that we brought the approaches of learning to life. They just weren't on our planner or on our wall. They actually became integral to every day in our classroom. And finally, and very importantly, Graham.
We got inspired from Graham Lang, a teacher who was part of the Collaboration for Growth. And he showed us something he tried in his schools before about how to document their learning by attaching Post-its to a wall.
And so we took that idea and the children turned it into something they decided to call the learning wall. So what is the learning wall?
Well, basically the learning wall, we decided it would be 4 different areas. The approaches to learning that we really wanted to bring out, the attitudes, the IB attitudes, new learning, and wonderings that children may have.
And then something we hadn't expected was we ended up with something the children have decided to call red learning, which is taking something which they're a bit worried about and they don't want to do, but they do it anyway, and then they learn from that. So that's something we weren't expecting, but we're delighted by.
So how can the children learn all this jargon, a lot of big words that they probably won't have familiar with in their daily lives? So we decided to make it easier for the children by putting descriptions of these different words in children's language.
One way that we did that was through the videos that we created. Do you want to explain that? And I'll go and get the other thing.
We created playlists of videos of the attitudes of approaches to learning, and we set those the playlist home for parents to watch with their children, and of course we also watched those videos with the children at school, and it was so powerful. And really, Sesame Street is one of the best ways to have a child learn one of these attitudes.
And this is probably a really good time to let you know that we have a 1-page summary all about this webinar presentation today. And we are happy to share everything with you. All our documentation is on there, all the playlists for you to take and use whenever you want. So we did that and it was working really well. But something wasn't quite sitting right with us, and then we realized it wasn't specific to the units that we were teaching. And the language was maybe still a little hard, especially because we have many children and parents who are learning English as an additional language. So we'd started to turn them into simple sentences. So for the unit on all living things go through a process of change, finish what you start, share the work, help, take care of the tadpoles, and that's about accepting responsibility within the context of that unit, and then they can move it out to other areas of our curriculum.
So how did we put it all together? We presented a blank display board to the children and asked them, well, how could we change this into a space where they could show their learning, and how could we divide it equally enough? And we asked the children, we posed a problem to these children and asked them what they thought. And they were very clever. We had some preconceived ideas of what we could do, but they decided, hey, how about we take 2 pieces of card paper, tape them together, put them up, they all have equal space. I thought that was very clever.
And so it really was an inquiry-based process where the outcome wasn't determined.
We also had the children help us decide what color these different things would be. So they decided that purple would be a great color for the attitudes, orange would be a good color for skills, green would be great for new wonderings or questions they have, and blue would be a good color for new learning.
And then the question becomes, how how do you make this part of your classroom culture? How, as Ron Richard would call it, how do you create this culture of thinking or expand this culture of thinking within the classroom? So we went with, as you would with all things, we did a gradual release of responsibility to the children, and we'll talk you through that now. So number one.
Well, number one is where the child may have, maybe during free inquiry and play, maybe cooperating or doing something where the children, or the teacher will say, hey, I noticed you were cooperating. Why don't you put that on the learning wall? And so this child, he drew a picture of himself cooperating.
And probably the examples we're going to show you, these are all as important because this is an EAL student who came to the classroom this year with no language, so was doing this with very limited language at the beginning of the year and succeeded. So as with all things, it must be differentiated. The next thing is we have the advantage of some teaching assistants in our class, and they take photographs of the children and offer them up on the table and ask the children what kind of learning was going on, or offer to take photographs as they are learning, and then that goes onto the learning wall as well. And then slowly we expand that. So we may go to the park, we may go on a field trip, we may do something, and we invite all the children to sit on the carpet and we discuss the approaches to learning and which ones they felt were happening at that time, and everyone records onto the learning wall, but that would be directed by a teacher. So then we move away to the next step.
And the next bit, where the children generate their own ideas of when to put to add to the learning wall and what they should add to the learning wall. So it's totally generated by the child.
And it's very exciting for us is that over time the children saw the interconnection between approaches to learning, new learning, attitudes, wonderings, and they started to join their thinking and learning together and creating this for the learning wall. And then finally, the parent component of this.
And during our student conferences, we invited the parents to add to the learning wall, and they did. And so this parent even made 2 different items to their learning wall.
So the children took these down in December. They decided to sort them into different kinds of learning, and they were put into a hard copy of the portfolio that went home. These were all also shared with parents through our monthly parent sharing. The children decide what they want to share every month, and they chose to share their learning wall through that. We also shared it with parents through blog posts and weekly roundup, and all the blog posts are available for you to have access to.
On that 1-page summary.
And then we're going to move this to an e-portfolio platform next year, which is kind of our next step.
But that will be a webinar for another day.
And finally, and most importantly, once again, we're happy to share with you. Please get in contact with us. We'd love to learn with you and Skype with you. Now the final thing is a presentation by one of the students and one of the parents explaining the learning wall to you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So the learning wall is a way to categorize your ideas, and it's been a great tool in Isabella's life because she's been able to recall what she's wondered, what she's learned, and how she solved her issues. And now she has more self-confidence to go back and redo something that she might have been fearful doing before. At home, it has helped us a lot. It has had a great impact because now we can sit down with her and walk through a question she might have, or she might ask us about a situation, and then we can, without being frustrated, communicate and interact with each other, knowing where she comes from. Also, because she's more self-sufficient, now we don't have to be pushing her too much to accomplish some of the things that, to day-to-day life. Also, it's been a great tool for me to understand my own thinking, and I have plans to implement it at home with my 2-year-old as well, so they can understand each other. Isa can understand how she works as well as she's growing up, and how their ideas, they can portray their ideas and visualize them. And it's not something that you constantly do as a rule, go look at your chart, but it's something that naturally, as you practice it, then your brain starts just working in that direction. I think it's been great to see how Isa is bringing from her dynamics at home, she's bringing them to the school, and she's actually putting them on the learning wall, and she's able to go back and use those dynamics to explore more her world here at school. Like, for example, she did a Lego with Daddy, and then she put it on a post-it and put it here on the learning wall at school. And now she told me she goes, looks at the post-it, and then creates her own Lego here at the school, recalling that she did it with Daddy and how much fun she had, and she is able to create something on her own. So it's not just a great memory, but it's also a positive influence for her. So overall, the Learning Wall has been a great project, not just for her, but also for us as a family.
So Chunyen, I'm going to ask you some questions about the Learning Wall. Is that okay? So the first thing that we decided that we're going to ask you is, what do you put on the Learning Wall?
You put the learnings, and it's like a kind of paper. Blue is new learning. Green is wandering. Purple is curiosity, independence, and appreciation. And the red is that when you're scared you can do it.
When you're scared you can do it?
Yeah.
How does it help you, having a Learning Wall?
It helps us remember all the things, so that, like the wandering, you can say to your mom and dad, and the mom and dad will tell you.
How do you use the Learning Wall? How do you?
You use it like when you did a new learning or any learning, you're just going to write it or draw it and paste it up the learning.
Who decides what to put on the Learning Wall?
We decide.
And how do you decide that?
You're going to try and see if you can learn the new learnings and learn with other friends. So if you did it, you can put the things in the learning.
Thank you.
That was the parent and student reflection,
And a final thank you and goodbye from Zoe Page.
and from Donna Saito.